Topic number 5 of the course is the audit process. Initially, the process that we are showing you is how third-party audits are performed according to AS9100 standard. It also includes the standard ISO 17021 and some other standards as AS9104/1 and /3. You don't have to comply with those standards to perform your internal audits. But the reason we have developed the process audits this way is because our recommendation is that you perform your internal audits as close as possible to the third-party audits. If you basically do the same thing that the external auditors are doing, you're going to be more successful, you're going to reduce the number of NCRs, and the whole staff will be more familiarized with what the auditor is going to ask. So the process is described according to AS9101, but we have incorporated the reference manual 13005 for internal audit requirements. We describe the process according to the reference manual and the standard AS9101, which include a planning phase, a development phase, the report, and the NCR's management. Let me show you an example of the planning phase. In the case of the planning phase, we actually start with the reference manual because AS9101 basically talks about how you do the audit plan and how you perform the audit, but doesn't really talk about an audit program. Let's see what it says. The audit program defines the audit procedures for auditing and should provide details of the scope and the timing for the organization's internal audits and the organization's supplier surveillance audits. An audit program should be put in place annually for every organization. The program and every plan for the separate audits should be such that all audits are to be completed within each calendar year as documented by the audit program. The program for the coming year should be defined before the start of the new calendar year. AS9100 really doesn't tell us how to do the internal audits. However, the reference manual is saying that you have to do an audit program every year and you have to start and finish that audit program every year. The organization should use a risk tool that helps to prioritize all the processes, the products, everything that you are going to audit as an input to determine the scope and extent of the annual audit program. During the planning phase, the organization needs to take into consideration the availability of resources with the right competency and training. And here, as we saw in the previous slides, we are not only talking about the QMS audits, we are also talking about product, process, and special process audits. Now, if you notice, reference manual is not using shalls, it's using shoulds. Should imply recommendation. That means that if it is a requirement from your customer, I would prepare the audit program and I would check with the customer if that audit program is acceptable. If the customer is okay with that, then you for sure are meeting the requirements. So that would be my recommendation. Talk to the customer about the audit program. Now, if the customer has a specific requirement for the audit program, obviously you have to implement it. Now, that's just an example of one of the multiple requirements for audit programs. Once we finish explaining the requirements for the audit program, we start talking about how you should be doing your audit plan. And that is according to AS9101. Reference Manual 13005 doesn't talk about how you do your audit plan. Considering that, the reference manual is a very good complement to AS9101 because 9101 gives us more details about the audit plan. For example, you have to determine the objectives, including the scope, which shall describe extension and limits such as sites, units, activities, and processes, the individual scope for different sites, and the whole scope. In the case that you have more than one site in your facilities, you have to include the scope, the extension limits, the units, the activities, the processes for each one of the sites when you are doing your audit plan. During the development section, we perform exercises using 9101 forms. Form 2, the QMS matrix. Form 3, the process effectiveness assessment report. And Form 4, the NCR form. All the exercises are focused on internal audits. That is the idea. In the final topic of the course, as I have explained before, we talk about how lead auditors work, and that includes the certification cycle. We have a section for pre-audit activities, then the initial certification. If a company is brand new implementing the standard and is getting the initial certification audit, that's what we explain on this section, stage 1 and stage 2 audits. Then we have surveillance audits once you are already certified, and the recertification audits. We also explain how the certificates are managed. And finally, we perform some exercises, but the focus here is if you were a lead auditor. We give you situations that we have to face during third-party audits, and the idea is to prepare you as a lead auditor. If you are